2009, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I always think about the hard times, especially in big races like marathons. At the dreaded 20-mile mark, that is one of my go-tos. Another friend said to me a very good sort of description. He said, "You looked in the eyes of the devil and refused to shake his hand." For someone to watch you sort of do your own thing, sort of in training, and not know that they're watching you as much as they are, and for them to tell you that information, it's almost like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I can do this. My name is Tom Starck, and I am a runner. I work full time, as well as sort of balancing the run work life. I particularly run marathons, but that's all there is really to me is running, work, and that's pretty much it, really.
I think we'll find out in this conversation that that certainly is not all that is to you, because I first came across you, mate, actually, but because of a kind of a mutual connection. Somebody that's been on the podcast in the past, Jerry's son, reached out to me and said, "Tom's got an amazing story. I think you should have him on." Take me back to 2009 and just explain a bit of that story, and obviously we'll delve into the journey from there as well.
Of course, of course. So my journey has been a little bit different compared to everyone else's as such. So again, as you said, so my journey starts back in 2009, where one morning I woke up with a lump on the left hand side of my neck. Didn't really think anything of it. I showed it to my mum. My mum was like, "Okay, we need to go and see someone about this ASAP." Called the doctor. Went and saw the doctor, and then within the same day, they said, "Right, Tom, you need to go to the hospital." Went to the hospital, and then they said, "Right, Tom, you need to go to Oxford, John Radcliffe Hospital." And I didn't really think sort of anything of it. And they told us to go to a particular ward called Cameron's ward, which upon entering the ward, there was children without hair, sort of in the bed, sort of left and right to me. And I was thinking, okay, this is a cancer ward. They must have sent me to the wrong ward or something. And then I remember sort of my mum telling me to go and sit down in the waiting room while she went and had a chat with the doctor. She came back out, just floods of tears, and said to me, "Look, Tom, you've got this. You've got Hodgkin's lymphoma. We're going to beat it." And yeah, from then it was then a year worth of chemotherapy. It just sort of during in that time, Make a Wish actually gave me a wish whilst I was ill, which I'm forever grateful for, because they gave me the light at the end of the tunnel, and when things were dark, it gave me something to focus on. And with that, I then after a year of chemotherapy, I then went into remission, and have been in remission ever since. And for me, I was always sort of looking how to give back to Make a Wish from when I was ill. So I thought to myself, what can I do? And a few friends were actually running London Marathon a couple of years ago, and I said to myself, right, you know what? Let me see if I can try and sign up to the London Marathon. And contacted Make a Wish and said, "Look, I'm a former Wish child. I'd love to raise money for you guys to give back." And they said, "Brilliant. We'll have you we'll have you on board." So I started training for that, and I was doing a couple of like park runs and things like that. And I started to. I know they say you can't win a park run, but I was always the first
You
finisher.
could win a park run. You could win a park run.
And I was thinking, "Oh, okay, I've actually got a little bit of a talent here." So sort of giving back to Make a Wish sort of gave back to me as such. So it was very sort of a full circle moment. And that was probably about 2.5 years ago that I decided to raise money for Make a Wish, and I've been running ever since, really. So it's sort of, again, it's a full circle moment. So sort of giving back is giving back to me. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I always look back at the tough times in 2009 when I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, and I always think about the hard times, especially sort of during my longer runs and tough sessions. And I just think to myself, this isn't an ounce as hard as what it was when I was going through chemotherapy and things like that, because I didn't have an ounce of energy. And to today and sort of last, well, 10 years as such, the amount of energy that I've had is just, it's, yeah, I'm forever grateful, forever grateful.
How often do you look back and reflect on it, mate? Because obviously it's been some journey from 2009 to where you are now, and like you said, running realistically is kind of still new, right? Like 2.5 years. It's not that long really to have done what you've done and get to the point that you're at. How often do you look back at those hard years and think about that? Is it with you every day, or is it
Mm.
kind of when certain things pop up or anniversaries?
Um, it's sort of, I do think about it a lot of the time, but again, I try not to let that define me.
Yeah,
I try and not not overlook it, but I try not to let it hold me back. Um, but when the fire needs fuel, boy, do I think about it.
yeah,
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 boy, do I think about it, because it really does, it spurs you on. Um, and also, I know there are there are people going through what I went through currently, and they look at me as a bit of an inspiration. Like there was a lady that I met at the weekend who is currently going through chemotherapy, and she loves running, everything about running. And she followed my socials and looked at their sort of looked at my story. And she just said to me, she said, "Tom, thank you so much for inspiring and being part of her journey, that she can um, look at life after chemotherapy. You know, there's always sort of there's light at the end of the tunnel, and you always need to think positive. And I genuinely believe that thinking positive is step one of the recovery. Um, but I do think about it a lot. I do think about it a lot, and especially in big races like marathons, at the dreaded 20-mile mark. That is one of my go-tos. It's one of my go-tos. So
you mentioned that lady that said that to you, and I'd imagine being in it, it's quite difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Obviously, where you are now and how you've kind of moved forward with life, it's kind of much easier, I guess, to look back and reflect. Do you remember being in the moment that maybe she's in at the moment, where you really are in the trenches, you're in the thick of it? What is
mm,
being in that moment like? Is it
mm.
scary? Is it like, how would you describe it?
Yeah, it's it's very hard to describe. I remember at school being taken out of lessons, and I remember just there was one day in particular that I remember turning around and looking at the classroom, just thinking, I just wanted to be normal. I just wanted to sit in that classroom, just do my work, and just be a normal kid. Um, so I understand sort of how tough it can be sort of in those times, and it really it's not only mentally, but it's physically. Now with chemotherapy, it absolutely wipes you out. It wipes all of the cells in your body. It beats you down to the absolute ground. Um, and yeah, it's not just physically and mentally. It's the pair of them together. It's almost undescribable. It's You really try and look for motivation wherever you can find it. Um, but yeah, it's very very tough. It's very tough. So for me to be that sort of that light for her was the fact that I've done it for one person makes it all worth it. It makes it all worth it. So yeah.
It's got to feel a bit weird though as well, right?
Very weird. Yeah, very weird. It's almost like I know I've said it. I know I've said it before, but it feels like a full circle moment. I almost see myself in her, and with her sort of obviously going through treatment as we speak. It's very sort of surreal. It doesn't feel real. It feels, yeah. It's a very weird feeling. It's a very weird feeling. But yeah, if I can be that ounce of inspiration for her and potentially contribute to her recovery, wow, it's all worth it.
It's difficult to reflect as well, right? Because often when something happens to you, when you're young. Like, forgive me, Tom, how old were you when it
I was
happened in
12,
2009? So
12 years
yeah,
old.
you know, I can't look back really and think about what was happening when I was 12 because it
Mm,
feels like it was ages ago, even though it wasn't that long ago. It feels that long ago, right? You have this
yeah,
significant moment at the age of 12 that happens to you, and trying to understand that and process that at that age, like, it must have been it must have been so difficult to understand kind of what was going on in the first instance.
yeah. A friend said to me, there was a quote that I resonate to massively, and it goes along the lines of, "I was too young to understand, but I was old enough to be scared."
Mm,
I understood the consequences of the situation I was in, but I didn't quite fully understand it. I never once during my treatment thought this could be it now. I always thought, okay, I'm going to get better. I'm going to get better. But looking back at it, it wasn't always a guarantee that I was actually going to get better, and things were they weren't good. And speaking with my mum sort of recently on what happened in the past, there were some things that they held back from me, because again they don't want sort of my mental side to go absolutely, yeah, berserk during those times,
yeah.
because it's very traumatizing. It's very traumatizing, and there's a lot of people that they people who have gone through something like that, and endurance sports, it seems to always resonate together. Like almost that William Goodge, who in America he went through something traumatizing with his mum, and you use that as fuel. And I always try to turn a negative into a positive by using that as fuel.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, that was yeah a big thing. And it's definitely fuel to the fire.
And it's, you know, it's obviously the biggest thing for you because you're the one that's dealing with it and you're the one that's having to try and push through it. But you mentioned your mum there, like having a conversation now about then must be quite eye-opening to you to what they also were going through. You as their kid going
Yeah.
through this thing and, you know, as you said, maybe the prognosis at times wasn't the best. So that must have been quite a, I mean, traumatic time for them as well.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, 100%, 100%. And also at the same time, looking back at it, my siblings, so my older sister and my younger brother, a lot of the attention around that time was on me. So it was almost like, not, I mean, I can't explain it because obviously I wasn't in their shoes, but it's almost like the attention was taken away from them. So they were sort of felt a little bit not forgotten about, but along the lines of forgotten about.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, they were obviously with me on the journey. But it's very hard as a family. Yeah, very, very, very hard as a family. And I remember my dad, when I first saw my dad, after I'd been diagnosed, and he just broke down. And I remember sort of looking at him thinking, why is he breaking down? I'm going to be all right.
Mm.
But actually, no, looking back now,
Yeah.
it's yeah, I may not have been okay. Um, but yeah, it's that's a very good point. It's a very good point.
I think as well, like we'll get into the running side of things in a sec, but you see, you know, the videos of the end of London Marathon or people reuniting with their family or their loved ones or their partner or whatever, and that is always a very emotional moment, and that can happen at any marathon. It's not just London, but we've just seen those moments, so kind of
Yeah,
sticks out in the mind. When you
yeah,
first did the marathon 2.5 years ago, when you first ran that 26.2, that must have been like emotion tenfold because, like you said, it's this full circle moment. You've done it for Make a Wish as well, who have granted you a wish when you were poorly. You've also done a marathon. You've also come through what you've come through, and then you've been reunited with your family. That must have just been almost overwhelming, I would imagine.
oh, massively, Ben, massively. I remember crossing that line the first time that I ran London. I remember crossing the line, and I just I broke down into tears. I broke down into absolute tears just because obviously the emotion of crossing the line, but not only it wasn't just crossing the line for me, it was proving to myself that number one, I could run a marathon with all of the chemotherapy that had been through my body, and my body would allow me to do that. And also, just yeah, it's very hard to explain, very hard to explain. But I remember just being with my family and just the emotions. Man, they were running high that day. Man, they were running high. But again, sort of going back to the 30K or a 35K. To be fair, I think on the first marathon, I think I blew up at halfway, or even
Yeah.
before that. I went out so quick. I don't know who I thought I was. I thought I was the absolute man, and then reality sort of set in. I remember I was in a St John's ambulance at mile 20 for about 20 minutes, getting my legs all sort of bandaged up just because they were in absolute pieces. Um, but yeah, it was the emotion on that day was undescribable, undescribable. But for me, sort of giving back to children who are going through critical illnesses, and for them to look at me and think, okay, Tom is an ex-Wish child. Um, once I get better, I can do that as well. And that's why on the course you can see videos of me. I'm always smiling. I'm always having a good time because I want people to be in my position, and I want them to be inspired and start. Whether it's running, whether it's swimming, whatever you do, just enjoy it. And life's all about having fun and being happy. I know that obviously isn't the case a lot of the time, but it's tunnel vision, man. Tunnel vision.
Yeah, I think as well, like you've obviously been through this experience when you were a kid that, let's put it bluntly, like you may not have been here. So you've kind of got that in you now that you you're gonna it must almost feel like you've been given a second chance in some respect. So you've got to kind of make the most of it. You've got to make the most of the opportunity of being here, of being on this planet.
Yeah, yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, another friend said to me a very good sort of description. He said, "You looked in the eyes of the devil and refused to shake his hand," and that is,
I
and
love
that
that.
and that for me was a big thing. And going into going into runs where my body is absolutely battered, um, I like to use that phrase in my mind. I look in the devil's eyes, and I'll not shake his hand for anyone or anything.
Yeah.
It's sort of an always keep going mantra for me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's that explains the whole journey really well, I think. I just want to pick up on something you just said, Tom, about you kind of finishing that first marathon, you proved to yourself that your body could do it, having gone through everything it went through in terms of the chemo and the treatment.
Yeah.
When you started your running journey, I guess, was that a worry? Like, did you think, I don't know how far I can push my body here?
Yeah, yeah, massively, massively. Because I mean, everyone knows how harmful chemotherapy is.
Yeah.
It is a nasty drug, absolute nasty drug. It almost it takes your body right to the very bone. It absolutely wipes you out. And there are several things that you can potentially sort of keep with for life. Things like low immunity, low energy levels, and things like that. And for me, that was always sort of in my mind. So I was like, okay, Tom, you need to fuel correctly. You need to make sure I'm thinking straight. And when sort of my energy levels are low, I say to myself, okay, Tom, this is normal. This is normal. We need to how are we going to overcome this? Don't look at it as sort of like a roadblock and just stay there. I think to myself, how can I overcome the low energy, the low immune system, and things like that? It's always a how do I overcome the problem in front of me?
Do you think it's made you extra vigilant almost?
Oh, massively. Yeah, massively, massively. Like, I've had times in runs where sort of my chest starts hurting because I've gone too hard, and I think, oh my god, that's because of the chemotherapy that I had. When actually it's not. It's Tom, you've gone too hard. You've absolutely sent the first ref or whatever. um, but it is hard to think about. It's hard to not think about it. It's hard
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
especially when yeah, when I'm running and something like twitches or something goes wrong, or I start to feel a bit lightheaded, I do think, oh, is this because of that? But yeah, a lot of the time I just try and block it out, and again, tunnel vision for me, man.
I absolutely love this story, man, and I'm so happy that Jerry connected us because, you know, I think you are doing exactly what that woman that has been speaking to you said, right? You're showing that it is possible even when you have been through trauma, which I think obviously I've never been through anything like this, so it's hard to speak on it, but I would imagine at that point, like, it would be quite easy to lie down and not push yourself, right? And what you're doing is you've stepped up and you are pushing yourself and you're showing that it's possible. And you're showing it's possible in a way that you're not just running marathons and, you know, getting around the course and raising money for charity. You're actually getting to a point where you're pretty competitive. How did you get to there? Like, let's talk about that journey because there's one thing running a marathon and there's one thing running a marathon at that pace.
Of course, of course. So for me, it again, it there's another bit of a story. So it goes way back to when I was in school. So one of my best friends actually ran for Team GB in the
Okay.
2K steeplechase. He went to the World Youths in Ukraine. And I remember I went and joined a session. I went and did a session with him, and he absolutely wiped the floor with me. And I thought, yeah, running's not for me. Running's not for me. If everyone's like this, whereas now in hindsight, it's actually no. This guy was unbelievably good. Um, so when I signed up for the London Marathon and I started winning park, finishing first at
You
park
can say
runs.
it. You can say it.
um, I contacted my friend and I said, look, I want to get better. How do I get better? And he said, right, my local athletics club, Wickham Phoenix Harriers, he said, join the club, start doing sessions, speak to the coach, and go from there. So I contacted my local club, Wickham Phoenix Harriers, um, and the head coach, the head endurance coach, Kevin, got in contact with me. Went down for a couple of sessions, and he said, Tom, I think you've got a bit of talent here, mate. I think we need to start working properly. And then before you know it, I ran. Oh, what was it? It was a 1650 1651 5K under 6 months of coaching with him. And to me, for me running that time, oh my word,
Yeah.
I was taken back by it. Honestly, taken back by it. But again, it goes back to having a structure and a plan and something to follow. And also, I find running with faster people, in particular my club, it you become faster. You almost become one of the fast guys by running with the fast guys. And at the start, when I first joined the club, I kept my I don't know why, but I kept my history to myself. I didn't want anyone to know. Ah, that's the kid who had cancer. That's the boy who had cancer. I didn't want any of that. I just wanted to be known as, okay, he's the new kid. Let him try and get to the front of the
Yeah.
group or be with the front group. Um, so yeah, I need to thank my coach Kevin massively for what he does for me. Because he sends me through a plan every week. I stick to that plan. And yeah, that is a massive thing for me, sort of getting quicker. But yeah, joining my local athletics club for me, that was the key to getting faster because with a brother and a sister, I am very competitive, especially with my younger brother and my older sister now, who is getting into running. I'm competitive is in my nature, so I think it just works sort of hand in hand. Me joining my athletics club.
It's funny those people that have an impact on your life, isn't it? Like your coach Kevin. Like if you hadn't gone down there and he hadn't seen you and said to you, you know, you might have something here, then you wouldn't be on this trajectory. You wouldn't be where you are now. And often you look through your life and you pick out these people that for some reason you've met. You don't quite know why you've met them, but you've met them and they've done something and that's kind of changed who you are. So I bet
Yeah.
you look at him like you must be so happy that you met him and went
Oh,
down to the club that day.
Oh, massively, massively. I mean, I will say this hand on heart, I would not be where I am today without my coach Kevin Stillwell. I would not be where I am without him. Um, he, it's almost like he knows me inside out. He knows when to push me, and he knows when to back off and just leave me to it. It's almost like he understands how I work, which to find someone like that in this day and age that understands you and understands the way you work and things like that. Oh, it's almost yeah, it's almost like God has sent him down to me to sort of get my life straight. You know, you know.
It's
Um,
strange as well because when you find a coach that works well with who you are, it is exactly that. It's that, hang on, like this bloke knows me better than I know myself, or this lady knows me better than I know myself. Like they're telling me to not do this session because I had a difficult couple of days the previous couple of days, or they're telling me I can push it a little bit harder, or they're believing in me that I can run this pace that I don't think I can run. And someone like that does kind of I guess reinforce the journey that you're on to get to the point that maybe you think is far away, but they know is actually in reach.
oh, 100%, 100%. I mean, one of the conversations that I had with Kev when I first went down there was, well, sorry, tell a lie. That it was about 3 weeks after I joined the club. He sat down with me, Tom, and he said, "Tom, I've been watching you over the past few weeks, and I think there's big potentials here." He thinks I can run quick marathons, sort of in the 2:30s, potentially 2:20s. And he said 5K. He said, "Tom, we can get that down to 15." 10K. He said we can get that down to 33, 32. And for someone to watch you sort of do your own thing, sort of in training, and not know that they're watching you as much as they are, and for them to tell you that information, it's almost like, yeah, you know what, you're right, I can do this.
Yeah,
And it is almost like a kick up the backside to say, Tom, you've got the potential to do this. Now let's go and do it. You know.
Mm. What's it like hearing those numbers? Because they're punchy, right? They're big numbers.
But yeah, big numbers. I mean, when he first said them to me, I was like, "Whoa, are you
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
you're not talking to the right guy?" um, but there are a lot of runners that I look up to, and I see the times that they're running, and I've seen some of the journeys that they've been through. Um, One in particular, Anya Culling,
Yeah.
seeing her marathon journey from 4 hours 30 or whatever to 2:30. I looked at that and I just thought to myself, "Whoa, that is
Mm.
crazy. Let me see if I can do that. I know I can do that." You know. Now, I'm not quite there, but it's a massive inspiration. And again, from for Kev to say those numbers to me, I believe everything. I believe everything he says, and everything that he has said in the past has happened. So
Mm.
why not? Why not? Shoot for the stars, man. Shoot for the
Go
stars.
on, Kev. Kev's got it. His mystical ball out. He can see 220 in the future, man. It's strange though because some of these club coaches, you're like, how do you know that? Like, how do you
Yeah,
know that? But then they're always right. Like a club coach is always right.
yeah,
I don't quite
yeah.
understand how it works.
Nice.
Talk to me about London this year, then, man, because I know you've just towed the line there.
Yeah,
What was that day like? And just give me like a quick race report, I guess.
yeah. Of course, of course. So London this year. One word: hot.
Hot, yeah, hot,
Yeah, very hot. So London this year, it was the fittest I'd
hot.
ever been. Yeah,
I was hot.
it, it was going into the race. It was I felt now. Coach and I had tweaked a couple of things in the block going up to it, and it was the fittest that I'd ever felt like I had been. Now running a 1:14 half marathon at the Fleet half marathon about 4 weeks prior to that, which was a massive PB for me. I thought to myself, okay, Tom, here we go, here we go. This is London's happening. Where my goal for London was sub 2:40, sort of closer to London Marathon Championship time, sub 2:38 as such. Um, that was the goal, and I genuinely believed I could have got that. Now on the day, so I'm on the start line with two of my training partners. We're all shooting for the same time, and I remember one of them, my training partner. Now I'll give a shout out to Ben and Mark, absolute
Good
legends.
boys.
And Mark turned around to me. He said, "God, today's feeling a bit hot." And usually, I layer up to the absolute nines, and I brought a hoodie with me to chuck on the start line. And for me not to wear the hoodie on the start line and not need anything, Mark looked at me and said, "Right, you haven't got a hoodie or anything on." Now that's how I know it's definitely hot today. So we started off on pace, and we got to halfway at about, it was 1 hour 20 and 50 seconds. So I was 50 seconds down on pace. And I remember looking at my watch thinking, okay, Tom, we're going to need to try and, if this is going to happen, we're going to need to negative split here. And then it just didn't happen, man. The cramp started coming, and it was more of a just bring it home. I still think I could get a PB. My PB at the time was 2 hours 50, and I knew I was in shape to beat that. Um, so I looked at my watch at about 35k, and I thought, okay, I could bring it in under 250. So I brought it home, 246 on the watch, which again is a big PB for me. So it's a step in the right direction, and it's just under 5 minute PB for me, um, and it was a very very tough day. Now I know a lot of people had bad days as well, which I sort of take comfort in that I didn't sort of get my A goal, but I got my B goal of a PB. But um, if I look at, I'm not exactly where I want to be, but I'm exactly where I wanted to be 2 years ago. If you had have said to me 2 years ago, Tom, you're going to run 2:46 at London Marathon, I would have bitten your arm off. I would have absolutely taken that. Absolutely taken that. So perspective is a big thing in the marathon game. Well, in the running game in general. But yeah, 2:46 is what I crossed the line with. I was absolutely finished at the line. Had lots of beers at the at the line as well, which yeah, I hadn't drunk in about 6 months prior to that. So that first beer, it definitely touched me.
I think
But
as well, like to say 2:46 on a bad day, right? Like, I think a lot of people had that day, didn't they? It was obviously Manchester the same day. I went over to support a couple of friends over in Manchester, and it was the same up there. Like, it was just roasting, and you were seeing everybody going out on pace, but just fading just because of that heat, and people aren't acclimatized to that, right? In
yeah,
the UK. So like to do that, what you did, an over 5 minute PB on a bad day, like you can look at your next race now and think, well, if I did that on a bad day in terms of conditions, if everything does click and I'm as fit as I was, that kind
yeah.
of must be quite exciting.
Oh, very, very, Ben. I mean, now I usually operate in. I mean, we've been the whole training block. We were training just like everyone else. We were training in sort of 2 or 3 degrees the
Yeah,
majority
yeah.
of it, and on race day for it to go up to 20 plus, it was a slap in the face. But yeah, to know that I can produce a performance like that on a hot day, it gives me a massive confidence sort of going into my next marathon, that is Chicago actually in October,
Oh yeah, amazing.
that I'm running. And I know Chicago is not exactly known for being hot. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and I genuinely believe the goal that I had in London will be achieved in Chicago. But at the time, if in Chicago it does go up to 20 plus degrees like it did in London, here we go. I'll do the exact same thing. Head down, grind it out, get it done.
It's this conversation's been so interesting because we've almost split it into two, and we haven't done that on purpose. It's just kind of happened where we talked about kind of the beginning of your story, and then we've talked about where you are now and leading up to Chicago, having come off the back of London, and goals for the future and times that I'm going to say you are going to run in the future as well, because if the club coach said it, it's going to happen. Like, let's connect those two things together in terms of what does Tom at 12 going through what he was going through think if you would have told him, like, this is who you are now?
Oh, that is a very, very good question. Now, the 12-year-old Tom would probably look at Tom now and think he'll be very proud of how far he's come. He'd be yeah, very, very proud of the sporting achievements, which for me is it's priceless. Um,
Mm.
and sort of back then, I wasn't really into my running, but I was very into my sport. So I was very into my football. Big Liverpool fan, so we won the league. So come on, shout out. um, but he would look at he would look at me now, and he would say, "Well done, well done.
Yeah.
You've proved yourself wrong." Because at the time, I would have said, ah, that's not achievable. That's not achievable with everything and all of the chemotherapy and all the chemicals and all of the harsh things that sort of been through my body. I would have said, nah, you're lying, Tom, you're lying. But here I am today, and I'd like other people to look at my story and think now whether it's chemotherapy or whether it's any sort of other illness or whether it's mental health or anything like that. I want them to sort of think, okay, I've been through this journey and I'm still going through this journey, but let me start this next journey and let me achieve what I never thought was possible. Um,
Mm.
but yeah,
And like when it was happening, and we kind of touched on this before, it must have felt like it was never going to end, and it was the biggest part of your life, right? At that point, and
mm,
now you're out and you're the other side of it. You can kind of look back on it and think about what that moment was like, but like how, in the grand scheme of things, when your life, when you're 90 and you're sitting reflecting back, it's actually it's going to be such a small part.
oh, 100%, 100%. And one thing that I would say is, whatever you're going through or what you have been through, don't let it define you. Don't let it swallow you up. Overcome it. Look at a target, or in whatever you want to do, look at the target and just work towards that target sort of day by day. But again, what you've been through, it does not define you. And I feel like I'm sort of living proof of that. So yeah, just don't let it swallow you up.